ring muscle up. Definitely one of the most sought after movements in CrossFit, and I'm going to teach you how to get started and how you can get your first muscle up. To generate the power to be able to get your hips up nice and high, to be able to transition over in the muscle up, is all about the kit. The kit looks like this. Okay, so how am I doing that? I'm jumping up to the rings and generating the power with my hips and my shoulders. My legs are staying nice and tight, my core is nice and tight, and I can literally stop that movement at any time because I'm in control of the movement itself. What I'm doing is I'm essentially moving from this position to this position, using my shoulders and my hips to generate that power. So how does that help with the muscle up? It helps generate the power for you to then throw your hips up nice and high. Next progression, after you get the hip swing nailed, is getting your hips up to the rings. So that looks like this. What am I doing there? I am throwing my hips up slightly, using the power that I've generated with the kick that we did before, and I'm pushing down on the rings, okay? So I get that nice position of being horizontal, and the rings are where my hands are just now. This makes it a lot easier to do the turnover when I'm going to try and catch the muscle up. Once you get your hips nice and high, you're then going to be looking at the catch. The catch is simply the world's fastest sit-up, okay? So what I'm doing is once I get my hips high enough, I'm simply just going to turn over, throwing my hips over, and catching the muscle up. So that looks like this. There goes the hat. So, what am I doing there? My hips are high enough to the point where it's a lot easier for me to just turn over like that. Okay, so I'm throwing my hips over and I'm keeping the rings nice and close, which is one of the key points. Okay, keep the rings nice and close to you. They're a lot easier to control when they're here compared to when they're out here. You're throwing your hips up, you're catching them in the sit-up, okay? Just now you've got to simply do the dip to extend. Okay, the dip is a classic body weight movement, looking at your tricep and your chest activation. And simply what you're doing is going from this position to this position here. Okay, you're going to keep your feet nice and tight, keep the rings close to you, and you're just going to simply just push. Okay, it's quite an easy movement, but it's just you've got to be comfortable up there on the rings. Key points from that. Number one, generate the power with your hips and your shoulders. Number two, try and get your hips as high as you can. It's a lot easier to turn over in that sit-up when the rings are at your hips and you're here than if you're here, because this is a lot harder than this. And then the turnover, make sure you're doing the world's fastest sit-up and keeping your rings nice and close. And then finally, getting the full extension on the dip.